Hi, it's Paul Ward, and welcome to another edition of Farm Talk. I'm very excited today. We are in Topanga Canyon, California at the Manzanita School, and our very special guest is the founder of the School of Lunch program, Hilary Boynton. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Opus Escrow and the Money Store. So we're in Topanga Canyon, which is right outside the San Fernando Valley, kind of wedged in between the San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles and the Pacific Ocean, kind of in this little pocket of mountains.
Yeah, we're right between Santa Monica and Malibu, tucked away in these canyons and mountains here. It's quite beautiful. It really is this kind of magical little vortex of nature. So in the heart of Los Angeles, but right, you're just surrounded by nature everywhere you look. So it's a special place to be in Los Angeles, yeah.
And you wear many hats here, but I have to say, starting off, they call you the lunch lady. That's the correct?
I guess, it was sort of like I stepped in. I never thought I would become the lunch lady, but here I am, yes, serving up food to kids, yeah.
Wonderful. And the School of Lunch program, you started this about 6 years ago or so?
Well, School of Lunch is our brand that we developed about 2 years ago, but we've been doing the school lunch program this is our 6th year, yes. So we branded ourselves because we're now not just in operations here at the Manzanita School, but we're doing training academies as well as consulting with schools and businesses, anybody really who wants to take things to the next level and raise the bar in feeding kids or their communities or just even themselves and their families. So, yeah.
Great. And so when I think of school lunch, I think of tater tots, cheese pizza, maybe a slice of pepperoni if you're lucky, an apple that gets thrown away, a carton of milk, maybe chocolate milk, mac and cheese, and that's what I think of.
The standard, yeah.
And that's not what you're doing here.
No, we're so different, so very different. Really based on a health journey that I went on with my family about 16 years ago. Well, it started way back in high school. I was like that kid that fell for fat-free and went that way for about a decade and had stress fractures in my both femur bones and both tibia bones my senior year in high school. And I was a soccer player and went on to play in college. And no one talked to me about diet. No one was like, let's look at what this girl's eating and why does she have stress fractures and, 4 from major bones. And then, but I just, rested and kept going and then went on. It was really about after college, got married and at 25 and at 26 got pregnant and miscarried right away. And that was like sort of a little bit of a wake-up call, but I was still sort of in that fat-free zone and like not really thinking about how I was nourishing myself. And I went on to have 3 years of infertility. And again, no one really talked to me about diet. So I was like super sad. It was a very, very hard time in my life. And really wondering like why was my body broken and like why couldn't I hold a baby? I went on to have 4 miscarriages over the next 3 years.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. It's very, very painful. And then I ended up doing fertility treatments and had triplets.
Wow.
So I was blessed with 3 babies, 3 years of infertility, 2 boys and a girl. I was like, this is great, all done. And then like thought about having another baby and boom, got pregnant right away. And boom, had a 4th child and then a 5th child. So all of a sudden I had 5 babies under 4.
So had you changed your diet at this
Still
point?
hadn't changed my diet, but sort of woke up to like organic and was like, if it said organic, then I was like, okay, I can feed them this, like whether it was cereal or Pyra Booty or whatever, still processed, packaged foods and just really kind of not aware. And then my 4th baby he was really my impetus for change. He was covered head to toe in eczema. And this is getting back to your question about why we're feeding them differently. I'm scooting around you, but
Sure.
He was covered head to toe. I had to pin him to my body in the middle of the night for 2 hours. It was just like I was exhausted. I had these 5 little babies and, tried everything and then ended up putting him on Zyrtec twice a day and steroid cream. And I knew like in my heart that it was just a Band-Aid. Like if I didn't put the steroid cream on, it would flare. And I was sort of just at my wit's end, and ironically had stepped into trying to change the school lunches. This is back in Massachusetts because I had stumbled upon the work of Alice Waters and Jamie Oliver and was like, God, like kids need to have better food.
Right.
And this woman that was helping me had told me that her son had been healed of asthma with raw milk. And I was just like, what is raw milk? I had never heard of it. I've been drinking skim milk my whole life. And so I was like, whatever, I will try anything. I was so desperate. So I put him on raw milk and cod liver oil, and he was completely healed in like a matter of a couple months. It was just like eye-opening, like, wow, real food just healed my child, when every doctor said he'll probably have asthma, allergies, eczema. They just kind of go hand in hand. Maybe he'll outgrow it, maybe not, we don't know. So I just like dove in and learned a lot about the ancestral wisdom and traditional methods of cooking. And I stumbled upon this woman had told me about the Weston Price Foundation, which people can look that up, but it's really based on this dentist's excursion across the globe to non-industrialized pockets of people living and thriving free of disease. And he studied their diets. And they had focused on nutrient density, of course, local, seasonal, but those fat-soluble vitamins, that are going to build the brain and build these beautiful, broad bone structure with, they all have perfectly straight teeth and no cavities and whatnot. So I was just like, okay, this nutrient-dense thing and this going back to the old ways is the way to go. And that's when our health journey went on, and that I had a daughter with epilepsy. I had several kids with speech delays, one with a head tick. And then we decided to dive into the GAPS diet, which we can go into later.
And what is that?
So the GAPS diet is the gut and psychology syndrome, so the gut-brain connection. So there's a lot of people don't realize that your health really begins in your gut. So your gut health is tied to your brain health, really. So the way we nourish ourselves is so important. And so we ventured into this special diet for 2 years. And at this point, I was teaching cooking classes out of my home and wanted to just shout from the rooftops that food is medicine, and that you can heal, and you don't have to get a diagnosis and think this is like your destiny, and this is how you're just going to survive living with these struggles. A woman in my cooking class was a photographer, still is, and Mary Brackett, and she said, she's also on the GAPS diet, and said, we've got to write a cookbook about this, because there really wasn't anything that was like super beautiful and inspiring, and food is so, visually appealing, and, you have to kind of bring people in and whatnot. So we ended up writing a cookbook designed for people to just like curl up in bed and be inspired that you can eat beautiful, delicious, nourishing foods and still heal. You don't have to be like going through this torturous thing. So then we handed over the cookbook to the publisher, and my husband at the time was diagnosed with throat cancer. So that really elevated our whole journey to health. And really, I say, one of the main reasons I'm so passionate about helping kids and helping people in general is that it's no way to live when you're chasing health, when you spend all your time and all your money chasing health. Right. And we want these kids to be graduating from high school and pursuing their dreams and not trying to figure out what's wrong with them and why they're bloating or have depression or they're anxious and or diabetic. There's answers through food.
Right. So the book is the Heal Your Gut Cookbook, nutrient-dense recipes for intestinal health using the GAPS diet.
Yes.
And you're making kind of old recipes new again, and bringing in different cultures and lots of color. And I mean, I've been here at the school, and the kids are, of course, just really enjoying what you're feeding them.
Yeah.
They're not throwing it away like you see in traditional schools. What are the recipes? How do you make that happen every day?
Yeah, well, the recipes are really designed. So the GAPS diet was created by a neurologist and a nutritionist who lives in England, Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, and she healed her son of autism. So it's a really specific protocol of healing and sealing your gut so that you can eat whatever you want, hopefully, within reason. We don't want anybody eating complete junk, but the idea is that you're healthy and vibrant and strong, and so that if you do eat something that's, not the best, that your body can handle that, and that's the way it should be. So the foods are really traditional in that they're all local and seasonal and made for maximum digestion and absorption of nutrition. So a lot of foods have to be given a lot of effort and prep outside of the body so that you can easily digest them and absorb the nutrition on the inside. So for instance, like fermenting foods or soaking your nuts and seeds and grains and legumes. We make all of our own homemade sourdough bread with locally grown grains that are freshly milled here in Pasadena. And then we do a long ferment here at the school. So it's quite different from anything you'll see
And you're
on the
attending
grocery store shelves, yeah.
And you're attending farmers markets. You're out doing the shopping, getting the best ingredients to bring back to the school. You're not having it, delivered by a big corporate conglomerate.
Yeah, that's where I think a lot of schools get, they're kind of handcuffed in that they are relying on these big, Cisco's and the like to deliver processed packaged foods. And a lot of schools have just reheating kitchens now, so they're not scratch cooking. And this is where we, when you scratch cook, you have full control over what goes into the food, right? We're putting every ingredient into the foods that we're serving up, and so we're responsible for that, and we take that very seriously. I mean, as chefs, we've worn continuous blood glucose monitors, which is very cutting edge. They're coming out more and more now and being more easily or readily available. They're a monitor that will monitor your blood glucose levels. So if we're feeding kids foods that are going to spike their blood glucose levels all day long, like sugars and processed foods, that's obviously not good for their health. So as a chef, if I wear this monitor and I know in good conscience that I'm feeding kids junky food, and I know that it's what it's doing to them, how can I in good conscience feed that to them?
Sure.
So we show up every day to keep these kids balanced and even and steady stream of energy, and we're educating the kids as they go through the line. You saw me today, you can't just have a piece of, although it's beautiful sourdough with raw butter, it's like that's not really a balanced meal. Like, have some protein and let's add in some salads and stuff. So we're at a point in humanity really where I feel like you can't just drop off healthy foods to kids and expect them to eat it, which is really sad, but that's where we are. So it takes those special relationships and the lunch leaders, or the soul chefs, we call them, school of lunch chefs, that are going to stand there day after day after day and tend to these kids and become that trusted resource and explain to them that this is, that the animals that we're eating are from our favorite farmers, and we look these farmers in the eye and we know their best practices, and that these animals have been out in the sunshine and on pasture and living a good life. And it's really important for kids and parents to understand that, because it's very confusing. And I was that kid that fell for the dietary dogma and trashed my health,
Sure.
And so I can see it in some kids. You can become that kid that's really rigid, like I was, and and you just stick with a narrative when really you have no idea how, that your brain is developing and your muscles and your like everything's happening at this age, right?
So what does your day look like at the school? I mean, if you're preparing everything from the scratch, you're not, again, just taking the processed, English muffins out of the box.
Yeah.
What does it take to make that happen, 5 days a week?
Yeah. So it started out, so after my husband was diagnosed with cancer, we ended up moving to California from Massachusetts, and we stumbled upon this school. It was 30 kids at the time, and someone said, oh, there's this great little nature-based school that started up, and I arrived here to just check it out. We're like, oh, cool, we'll go check it out. And the chef was like, oh, the kids just caught their own fish today, and we cooked it up, and then she told me she really wanted to roast a whole goat, and I was like, sold, we have to go here.
Wow.
So we got in, and then as the school grew, they outsourced the food because it just was unmanageable for one person. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, this doesn't really align with what I signed up for or nature. It just wasn't driving. So I spoke to the head of school, and I got the job as the snack coordinator and consultant to the lunch lady at the time. And then I just went to the farmer's market, like you said, and I would get whatever I could, bright, fun, interesting things, and created this scene at snack. And soon enough, the snack outshined the lunch program, and I was given the keys to the kitchen come Christmas time. Awesome. I was just like, let's just do this. Let's go. But I had only ever cooked really for my own family of 7. I've never spent, to this day, a day in a commercial kitchen. So to get those systems up and running, to figure out how to feed these kids this way that I knew was really important, day after day after day, was super overwhelming. But I brought in, chefs from my friend and partner in School of Lunch, Chuck Barth. He runs Slow Food Venture at County. So he brought in my first chef to help me out. She's still here today. And it really was just bootstrapped. But we've developed over the past 6 years, and the school has grown. We're now feeding about 175 people a day. So it's what I learned is that freedom is in the system. So I didn't know this at all. Just being a home cook, I'm kind of off the cuff, whatever. But Sunday night, we're feeding the sourdough starter. For Mondays, making the dough, baking the bread at the end of the day. So Monday's a huge prep day for the whole day. We're roasting our roast beef, we're roasting our turkey breast, we're soaking our garbanzo beans that are local from Larry Kandarian or Coda Farms to go to be made into hummus the next day. We're prepping our homemade pestos. We're sprouting our almonds to make sprouted almond butters for the week. And then Tuesday's typically a chicken and rice. We're roasting all the chickens, pulling all the meat off the bones, turning the bones into a bone broth. Wednesday, we're again making more sourdough for the third. Wednesday's usually like a composed, like a enchilada pie or a shepherd's pie or something that, we can put together. And then Thursday is soup salad focaccia, so that bone broth is put into the soups on Thursdays. And then Wednesday, we're salting the meats, like a slow roasted pork shoulder or chuck roll. We'll salt it on Wednesday, so it goes in the oven all day Thursday and slow roast, so that Friday, all we have to do is pull the meat, cook up some veg and salads. And so it's kind of this nice process, this system that makes it so we can flow and the chefs all get in the groove and we kind of, know what we have to do to get it done.
That's amazing.
And we switch it up.
And you
here.
brought in other cultures, right? Chefs from other cultures.
Yeah, so we have, that was one of the biggest things. When I arrived in Los Angeles, I was just like, come from the small little colonial town in Massachusetts to all of a sudden being in Los Angeles where there's just like this melting pot from around the world.
Sure.
I felt almost like Weston Price, who had traveled the world, because I would run into people, at the butcher shop, wherever I found somebody with an accent, I would pull them over and be like, hey, can you tell me how you ate growing up and were you ever sick? And across the board, everyone was just like, when I'd show them my cookbook, they said, these are the foods we ate growing up and we were never sick. And now we're seeing our children and our grandchildren struggling with disease and we don't know what's happening.
Right.
But they're seeing, they're losing sight of their traditional ways, but it's hard. They're in America where it's just about fast and convenience.
Sure.
And everyone's taste buds are hijacked. And so I really set out on a mission to interview as many elders as I could to understand, how they incorporated these foods into their daily lives. And we bring people into the school to talk to our chefs, to talk to the kids, to cook with us. We had my friend Sandeep from Pure Indian Foods Ghee, came from New Jersey, and he makes the most beautiful homemade ghee. And we use oh my gosh, we use so much ghee here. It's beautiful, grass-fed ghee. And he came, we did a whole Indian day.
And for folks that are listening that don't know, what is ghee?
Ghee is a clarified butter. So basically
Okay.
all the milk solids are removed, and it's just this beautiful fat.
Wow.
Yes. So it's got a high smoke point, and so we're getting again those fat soluble vitamins into the kids. So it's great for building the brain, makes things taste good. Fat is one of those things. Going fat free for so long, I mean, I didn't realize how much flavor fat brings, right?
Sure.
It's so delicious. So and then we also have chefs who we have a lot of Persians in our kitchen. So one of our chefs is from Iran, and her mom came. We did a whole Persian day. Another chef is from Brazil, and her mom just came to check it all out. She's going to come back and do a Brazilian day.
Very
so we're
cool.
really about exposing the kids to as much, joy that comes from sitting and nourishing yourselves.
So it's almost like a social studies class through food.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You're not just reading about Brazil or Iran or
right.
Wherever the chef is from, they're experiencing it.
Yeah, it's very cool. And
That's awesome.
And the fact that they're all participating in it, right? And they're trying new things, and then they're watching their peers try new things, and we're encouraging them. We want this to become normal for them, that this way of eating is normalized. I mean, we're feeding kids K through 12. And I think kindergarten has been here, K1, 2, for the last 2 years, 2 or 3. And it's huge to have the kids when they're that little. Because the first couple weeks, they're like,
Sure.
this doesn't look familiar, and I don't think I want that. We have some tears, and I'm like, to the parents, to the teachers, give me 2 weeks with them. And you have to make it fun. You have
Sure.
to be dancing, and they have to trust you and love you, and you get them to just try a
Because
little
they're
bite.
used to tater tots and peanut butter and jelly, right?
Totally scary
with
for
the
them
crust,
sometimes.
With the crust cut off.
But it becomes totally normal. And then, we want these kids, I don't think most people know what it feels like to feel good. So if all of a sudden you're truly nourished and satisfied, we don't do dessert here ever really. Maybe if we have a bumper crop of apples, we'll make an applesauce, or plum, stewed down plums with a little raw cream on top, but they don't need it. They're satisfied, right? So people think, oh, you gotta have dessert, but it's we focus savory over sweet, and our goal is to just keep them steady and nourished.
So they're not crashing at 10:30 in the morning.
Exactly.
Because they ate their Captain Crunch, and now the sugar high is
so that's
gone.
where we bring the parents in once a month for parents at lunch, and that's where it's actually really cool. What I've recognized that this is a true bottom-up approach is that the kids are the first in the door, and then they're like, they're starting to eat it, and they're going home and saying like, Mom, can you make fermented ginger carrots, or can you make sourdough, or Miss Hilary's broccoli is better than your broccoli, or whatever it is. The parents like, what's going on at that school?
Right.
So we had a couple parents last year of first graders come to our training academy. One of them now works in our kitchen a couple times a week. So it's like they go home, and then the parents come for lunch once a month and get exposed to what we're doing. We expose them to our local farmers, and they get to sit down and eat this beautiful food, and then hopefully it infuses into the home kitchen and becomes a way of life, and they're connected to the local food
And you've started
system.
a training academy, correct? You're running that once or
we're
twice
in
a year?
our 4th year now of doing week-long intensives in Topanga Canyon here at a retreat center, where we basically people come from all over the country. You don't have to aspire to be a lunch lady in your kids' school. You can just want to learn for yourself. It's really exciting. We're getting a lot of 20-somethings too that are like figuring out that, they don't feel well, or they recognize how, messed up the food system is, and there has to be a better way, or they're studying to be registered dietitians, and there's a whole movement now of real food registered dietitians who have come through and done internships at our kitchen, or come to the training academy. So we immerse them in nature, connect them to nature, connect them to themselves, their community, the local food system. We run them down to the farmers markets. Last year we went to Apricot Lane Farm and had a tour of their farm and cooked in their test kitchen. So it's like, it's super transformative in that you're getting your hands on kind of making a bone broth or ferments or raw dairy, and we have specialists come in like Mark McAfee, who owns Organic Pastures, Raw Farms by Organic Pastures, which is the raw dairy. He comes and does a whole lecture to talk about what is raw dairy, because like I did not know at all. So a lot of people, it's super, super brand new.
Sure.
So, but once you start to just dip your toes in the water, it's just like liberating to understand the power of food, and that we do have agency over our own health, and that we don't have to live in fear, and that when you build a healthy immune system, you can go out and do whatever you want, right?
That's awesome. And I would think that for the students, the kids too, who are eating such healthy food, it's almost like a biology, botany class at the same time, and they're growing a lot of their own fruits and vegetables.
Yeah, the kids, actually, when my kids were in 8th grade, my triplets, they're now 19, but they started a farm right down here where I went to Larry Kandarian, who's my friend at the Santa Monica Farmers Market. Well, he goes to several, but I see him there. He's up in Los Osos. Beautiful man, beautiful farm. He gave us some bell beans that we used as a cover crop. This was just like hard pack, just like this driveway.
Right.
And now it's this beautiful flourishing garden, and Apricot Lane Farms mentored us on compost teas and whatnot. And so the kids, they really, we're a no-waste kitchen as well, so we compost everything. We really pride ourselves on not wasting all this beautiful food, and we talk to the kids about that too, like take what you want, and you can always come back for seconds. Like we don't want to have a big, bunch of waste. We're so blessed to have this food. So yeah, they just delivered today some fresh Swiss chard and some carrots and some kale, and so it's so super special when they can walk through the line and we're like, you guys grew this, like you have to try it. And then of course they're like, okay, and they try it, and that kind of closed loop comes full circle for them, which is cool to see.
That's awesome. And you're also making the program expandable, so you're working with other lunch ladies and other people throughout the country to kind of get the word out on what can be done throughout the country.
Yeah, I mean, I always say like, I can't change a million schools, but I can train a million people, I feel like. That's where like, I can't go in and fix all the problems that every school has, but the people like me that are passionate about their community and their school where their children go, or their YMCA, or just whatever they want to, step in and try and make a difference, or wherever, they can. What was your question? I don't want to go roundabout.
Expanding into other
expanding.
areas.
So yes, so we usually tell schools, of course, we'll consult with them. That's a big part of what we do, but we love to have them send a chef or two from their community so that we can really infuse, again, those principles. So we've had chefs come from Miami, this year we have from Boston, we had from Arizona, California, down Laguna Beach, Texas. So it's really cool that people are starting to implement, this same program and systems.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And hopefully, it takes off and, that becomes the new normal, not just junk and processed foods.
Yeah, I think we're really at a point where it has to change. We have over, I would say, 60% of our kids with a chronic illness, and 90% of our population is metabolically unhealthy. So it's like what we're doing is not
all food related.
Food related, right? So like prevention. I was talking to you before, like what my family went through, for 15, 20 years, and sometimes, we're still in it. Disease can be long term, and when kids are struggling, it's so painful as a mom to watch that. And so if I can prevent all of these things, I know are so preventable.
Right.
I mean, so much of it. And to see kids on lots of medications at such a young age, it's like like my son with eczema, you don't have to be given a diagnosis and think that this is it. Food is really magical in the way that, in 2 months, he was completely healed. Now he's 16 and has no asthma, no allergies, no eczema.
That's amazing.
So,
I want to read a quote from your book. This is from Sally Fallon Morell from the Weston Price Foundation.
Yes.
If you think healing diet means renunciation of delicious foods, you are in for a surprise. The Heal Your Gut Cookbook shows that you can enjoy every morsel while your body recovers from a lifetime of nutrient deficiencies and processed food. It is a wonderful contribution to the literature on the topic. I just thought that was kind of a good overall summation of what you've, put together in the book and, of course, here at the school.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Well, I feel like we're overfed and undernourished. We have access to so much, and but we're really eating empty calories that are not satiating us and not supplying the adequate nutrition that we need to thrive and to build muscles and brains and all that, and to become healthy, conscious, connected humans, right?
Yeah.
So we have to deal with that. I think we need to really accept where we are and step into the work. I think that, like I say with my book, the hardest part about this, special healing protocol is deciding to do it. Because you're just like, oh, if you think too much about it, you're like, this is going to be hard. But life is hard, right? But there's nothing more rewarding than having your health. You're rich, rich, rich when you have your health. When you don't have your health, you have nothing.
That's true. You can't really do anything.
All the money in the world doesn't give you your health back. And so, these... If we can, our children really are our most precious resource, and it is such a beautiful thing to work in purpose every day to change, hopefully the trajectory of their health. If we're feeding them, we have their stomachs for 6 hours a day. 30% of their meals are right here.
That's awesome.
So that's a huge opportunity to really lay that foundation and give them, a launching pad to go out with the knowledge to.
And then they go home and say, Mom, why don't you cook like the lunch lady?
Well, one kid went home, he's like, I had the most delicious fennel today. He's in kindergarten. The mom's like, what? So it's just cool to, most kids don't have, even if we're just giving them the vocabulary of like raw dairy or kefir, or like today they're doing beet kvass shots. I'm like,
wow,
telling them like, this is a blood cleanser, a liver tonic, like, and they're just like, cool, let's do it, or I'll bring out one of our, companies that we support, Hacienda, which is right here in LA. They're doing amazing work. They're sourcing corn from Oaxaca because most of the corn in the United States is not so great.
Right.
So beautiful nixtamalized corn, and they also have hibiscus and beans as well, but they have these chiquitanas, which are flying ants that are dried and seasoned, and so
really?
I'll just bring those out. I'm like, who wants to
ants.
try a flying ant? The kids are like, okay, and then all of a sudden, like the whole 5th grade class is like, downing these, but they're, filled with vitamin K2, and so it's just making it fun, and that's
awesome.
what really needs to happen. I say we're joyfully. I just added the joyfully because Chuck always says, my partner says, we're making a joyful noise. And I said, we're joyfully disrupting the trend of chronic illness in this next generation of kids.
That's
you have
awesome.
to make it fun, right? Otherwise, it can be a slog.
Absolutely. It's got to be fun.
And the gratitude. The kids are so gracious, and we train them with that too. Look your servers in the eye. These chefs worked really hard, and give them a please and a thank you, and show that gratitude. So it's just, we're trying to build better humans.
That's wonderful. So Hilary Boynton, thank you so much for being our special guest on this edition of Farm Talk. We've loved having you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you spreading the word and spreading our message. It's really important, and we appreciate it.
Absolutely. We will get the word out as much as we can. Absolutely. Great. And of course, we want to thank our sponsors, Opus Escrow and the Money Store. And be sure to tune in next time for another edition of Farm Talk.